announcement. If you made a donation to our wonderful circulation day, we do have a little tax receipt for you, and they're all back on the back table, so be sure to get one of those today. Hi.
Hi.
Ooh, that was nice. But I want to know who decided that that would be our greeting. Hi. Now, you know how sometimes if you stare at a word long enough, it starts to look really weird? Like, is that spelled right? Well, when you start to just say, hi. How weird is that? I mean, why didn't they come up with something like namaste, right? Namaste. That's our greeting. That the divine in me greets the divine in you. The light in me greets the light in you. And then there's the Hebrew greeting, shalom. So much nicer than hi. Shalom is a greeting, but it is derived from the root meaning denoting wholeness or completeness. We think of it as meaning peace, but it means all this great stuff. Wholeness and completeness like the universe. Shalom. Look at someone next to you and say, shalom. So it's a blessing. It's a state of well-being. It's tranquility. It's prosperity. It's security. It's perfection. The title of today's talk is Finding Peace. Have you looked under your chair? Finding Peace. So I have a subtitle for the title, and that is The Power of the Zoom Function. Now, it used to be that the Zoom function was only really available to the camera guy, right? When something important was going on and they'd zoom in, they wanted to really see that, or they'd zoom out so you could see the bigger picture. And now we have that little on our we have on all of our gadgets, you can zoom out and in. And what I want to offer today is that Zoom function is available in your consciousness, and that it can be a tool, a practical spiritual tool that you can use in finding peace. I want to start, though, with a beautiful little video that accentuates this point. Oh, there's Shalom. Here we go. spiritual experience.
That's right. What was it?
So actually, Cynthia, I'm sorry, I didn't mention to you, I did to Aletha, that it's a zooming out from a boat in the center of the ocean all the way out beyond our sun, beyond our galaxy, beyond and on and on and on and on. And then zooming back in. And it's really only, if you think about it, that infinite space out there where we see and can perceive perfection, absolute balance and harmony and perfection. Because when we zoom in, we don't see that kind of balance. We can say and we can affirm divine order. We can say it's all in divine order. We can say all things are working together for good. But it sure doesn't look that way at times. So zooming from the infinite space to the world stage, how about? There is a gentleman by the name of Edgar Casey who was born in 1901. He lived a long 43 years. But in that 43 years, he put himself into a self-induced trance state over 14,000 times. And all of these readings that he did were recorded. You can find them if you get on the website for the Association of Research and Enlightenment, ARE. They house every one of his readings. Edgar Casey predicted the world wars with complete accuracy, the stock market crash, the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, medical treatments that didn't exist at the time. And in several of his readings, he specifically referenced the year 2026. He spoke of this time as the Great Reckoning, the Great Change, when the U.S. would experience severe polarization, civil strife, and home military troops in the streets of major cities. The most important message that he gave along with this was, he said that there would be transformation through crisis. We see that a lot, don't we? We see that in our own lives. The crisis would be the necessary catalyst for a higher purpose. That we would have the choice of moving forward or falling back. What do? We move forward. So that sounds like actually the choices that we have had throughout history and the choices that we have in our daily lives every day. So zoom in a little bit further and we have our relationships. And in our relationships, we have conflict and struggle. We also have love and joy and harmony. In A Course of Love, it actually teaches us, if you expect the body to bring you pleasure, know that it must bring you pain as well, because this is a universe of contrast, of opposites. And so know that, in case you got this far and you didn't know, that along with the joy and the pleasure, there will be pain. And it becomes our choice to transform it, transform the pain, transform the crisis. Those are our active invitations from day to day. As a minister, one of the things that I am really working on continually in my life is practicing not reacting, practicing being responsible, thoughtfully and lovingly responsive, as opposed to the anger that can be triggered. And I came across this woman by the name of Mel Robbins, and she is I guess you would call her a motivational speaker. But if you've ever heard somebody, sometimes people make the reference, oh, they took me to church. That song really took me to church. Well, here you are this morning and you're at church, and I'm going to take you to school instead. So we actually are going to have a video on psychology. But this is really it's been an absolute gift for me, so I wanted to share it with you this morning. Mel Robbins. Oh, we'll get to that later.
Let's get one thing straight. Anger isn't the problem. The problem is what you do with it. Most people think, I need to stop getting angry. No, what you need is to understand why you're angry in the first place. Because here's the truth. You're not angry, you're triggered. And there's a difference. Someone cuts you off in traffic, you explode. A coworker sends a snarky email, your blood boils. Your partner forgets something important. You stew in silence, but it's not the event, it's what it represents to you. Disrespect, being overlooked, not being heard. So here's the first secret. Name the trigger, not just the emotion. When you say, I'm angry, you stop looking deeper. But when you say, I feel disrespected, now we're getting somewhere. And once you see that, the second secret is this. Pause, don't react. That tiny moment between stimulus and response, that's your power. That's where change lives. You've got 5 seconds. And if you can just hold the reaction, breathe and think, you win. It's not about becoming a robot. It's about becoming in control. Because emotions, get this, are not facts. Just because you feel ignored doesn't mean you are. Just because something offends you doesn't mean it was meant to. When you treat every emotion like gospel, you let your worst self drive your life. Here's another reason people stay angry. They expect others to be them. You wouldn't have said that. You wouldn't have forgotten. You wouldn't have acted that way. Well, guess what? They're not you. And that's a good thing. When you drop the expectation that people should act like you free yourself. Now listen, your peace, that's your job. Not your boss's job, not your partner's, not your friend's, yours. Own it. You are responsible for protecting it. And if you keep handing that power to anyone who presses your buttons, you'll always be on edge. But here's the kicker. This whole thing, it's a habit. You train your brain every single day. The more you pause instead of snap, the easier it gets. The more you breathe through frustration, the more peace becomes your default. This isn't about being soft. It's about being strong enough to choose your response. So next time life throws something at you, and it will, remember this. You've got 5 seconds. Breathe, decide who's in control, and choose peace. Because peace isn't the absence of noise. It's the ability to not let the noise control you. You're not angry. I know it feels like anger. Your jaw tightens, your fists clench, your voice rises. You feel that fire in your chest and think, I'm furious. But let's break it down. What you're actually feeling is a reaction to something deeper. That heat, that's not anger. That's a trigger. And if you don't get clear about the difference, you will keep blowing up your life over things that actually aren't about the situation in front of you. Someone doesn't text you back. You get mad, but is it really about the text? No, it's about what it represents. You feel ignored, unimportant, maybe even rejected. That's the real emotion. You're not mad about a text. You're hurt that you're not being seen. You're not angry that your coworker got credit for something. You feel unappreciated, overlooked, disrespected. That's the trigger. That's what's driving the emotion. But because we've been taught to label it all as anger, we don't look any deeper. We just react. We yell, we shut down, we lash out, and then we wonder why nothing changes. Let me tell you something that'll shift your entire life. Anger is just a masked emotion. It's never the first thing you feel. It's the shield. It's the armor. The real stuff is underneath: hurt, shame, fear, guilt, rejection, insecurity. That's the real pain. And it takes guts to admit that. It's easier to get mad than to say that actually made me feel invisible, or that hit my fear of not being good enough, or that reminded me of how I was treated when I was a kid. That's the truth most people are running from. But when you learn to identify the real emotion, the trigger, everything changes, because now you're not a slave to the reaction. You're in control. When you can pause for a second and say, wait, what's actually going on here? What did this touch in me? That's the moment you reclaim your power. That's the moment the anger starts to lose its grip on you. You stop being reactive and start being intentional. You stop yelling and start understanding. And guess what? You still get to hold boundaries. You still get to say, hey, that wasn't okay, but you're doing it from clarity, not chaos. And here's the part nobody wants to admit. Most of our anger comes from old wounds we haven't healed. You're not angry at what's happening now. You're angry because this feels like something that happened 10 years ago, 20. You're reacting to the past. That snide comment, it hit the same nerve your parent used to hit. That disrespect at work, it triggered the same feeling of being powerless you had in school. This is emotional muscle memory. And until you do the work of noticing the pattern, naming it, and calling it out, it's going to keep running your life. So every time you feel that fire rising in you, stop. Ask yourself, what's really going on? Not what just happened, but what the situation represents to you. Dig underneath the surface. Don't stop at, I'm mad. That's just the surface. Go one layer deeper. I feel unseen. I feel not enough. I feel scared. That's where the healing starts. That's where the control starts. That's where the truth lives. Because once you start telling yourself the truth about your emotions, they stop controlling you. You stop spiraling. You stop overreacting. You stop giving other people the keys to your peace.
Can anybody relate to that? Yeah. Does this look familiar, by the way?
Yeah.
Azure. Azure?
Sure.
Azure. A couple of months ago, I think I started to announce this about we could be a sort of a support for bringing a greater availability and a wider availability of organic foods into our community. There were several other things going on at the same time, and I knew that we would eventually come back to this, but not in the way that it did. So my last communication with them was trying to identify a team for this, a coordinating team for this, because it's a little bit involved the day that they drop a delivery. So I'm sure would understand that I was a bit shocked on Wednesday at 9:30 in the morning when I got a text from the semi carrying the truck or the food from one drop to another, and they said, oh, we're here just want to make sure we're in the right place, Unity of the Mojave Valley. We got a drop for you at 9:30. So what do you just suppose happened inside of me? So of course, I shot a text back, right? And it said, No orders, no coordinator. Text comes back, we have Natalie Lehman as the coordinator, which was the old Natalie Lehman. Natalie Lehman doesn't do that anymore. But no, I actually looked back through my emails to see where my last communication was. I'm waiting to identify a coordinator. So needless to say, there were some very stressful moments, but here's the good news. We already have all the people interested in doing this, and an order for $1,500 that's already been placed from people in our community. We just need the doors to be open here. So think and think again, and look in your heart and your prayer time, your meditation time. But I want to tell you how I worked through that, because it was a trigger for me. It was a trigger that I had to stop myself from coming down here and being the coordinator. Can I get an amen or a hallelujah or something for that? I mean, you don't know how hard that was. Because I skipped right into all the people who had placed orders, and I was going to disappoint them by not allowing that drop to happen. And then I thought, and what will they think about unity? Will they trust us in the future to be a drop for their precious food? So I don't know you don't always have to know, go all the way back to your childhood. When was it that I didn't want to let people down? It was such a big thing to let people down, but it's a big trigger for me today. And what happens when we get triggered? What was happening for me was the old blame game, like, whose fault was this? That we didn't get the emails. I wanted somebody to take responsibility other than me. Can any of you relate to this? Yeah, it's always good to not feel alone. It worked out wonderfully. No, we didn't have our drop, but we learned a lot. I know I learned a lot in that process, and I'm hoping that somebody will be motivated to be part of our team, to make that happen. It probably won't happen more than once a month. But we had some communication back and forth, and they indicated that they had the wrong email for us. They apparently had been sending emails. Every time somebody places an order, an email is supposed to come to us. And so we might have at least had a clue that something was going on if we'd received those emails. So from the Bhagavad Gita, better indeed is knowledge than unconscious action. Better than knowledge is meditation. But better still is the surrender of attachment to results, because what follows is immediate peace. And how many of you had the experience a few days ago? I'm in the kitchen, I'm really hungry, I need something right now. I had put this thing right here, went to grab the olive oil to put a little bit of, on top. And I looked and realized that instead of olive oil, I had put some balsamic vinaigrette on it, which was not the taste I was looking for. So I went through this whole thing in my mind, like, do I have to wash it off? What am I going to do with it? I'm like, I'm hungry, I'm going to eat it. And it was so good. It was so good. So from A Course of Love, you are not called to accept what you do not like, but to accept that you don't like whatever it is you don't like. Only when you have accepted how you feel do you quit labeling good and bad. Only then can you deal with everything from a place of peace. And so it is.